The fried liver attack clearly holds the award for the coolest opening name in chess. Besides that, it is statistically the most guaranteed way to win as white. Let me show you something really crazy. We're heading over to the biggest online database of chess games, and the fried liver attack is most suitable beginner to intermediate level. For that reason, I sorted out players who are rated 1400 or below that. Now, let's go back to the most common moves and let's see something really interesting. So the move that is shown here at the top is the most played move, statistically. Now, so I'm going forward with these moves, so e4, e5, clearly, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, white is aiming for the Italian game, knight f6 is the most played. Here white comes with knight to g5, targeting this pawn on f7. Black goes d5 in order to cover that, white captures, black recaptures. We're still following the most played line ever, and here comes the fried liver attack, knight takes f7. Now count the moves till the checkmate from here, okay? So black recaptures because that's the only thing they can do. Now queen to f3, which is a check to the king, and black goes king back to e8 because that feels like a safe spot for the king. Now you take bishop takes d5 and your pieces are lining up against this knight on c6. But black notices that they can counterblow with knight to d4. Looks pretty cool as this attacks the queen as well as this pawn on c2. But the only downside is that it actually blunders the checkmate in one, queen to f7 checkmate. Notice that move 6 was the beginning of the fried liver attack. Move 9 is a forced checkmate. Well, not forced, but the most played moves lead to this checkmate, and that's why I said that that is statistically the most guaranteed way, and if there is any guaranteed way to win a chess, that is it. Welcome into the quick crash course on the fried liver attack. I'm Grandmaster Igor Smirnov, and I'm going to walk you through these moves so that you know the best moves, the best counters, and how to deal with them, and you also can understand every move easily so that you don't have to memorize it. Alright, so there we go. White just played bishop to c4, targeting possibly this weak square f7. Now black has two main options to choose from, either knight f6, which is the most common move, the two knights game, or bishop c5, which leads to the Italian game. Now both moves has, their pros and cons, both moves are fine. Knight f6 allows this knight g5 attack, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Bishop c5 does not allow that thing, since from here the queen still controls the square, therefore white can't go there, the queen will capture it, there is no knight on f6 which will obstruct the queen. So black stays away from the fried liver attack. However, in this case white has other unpleasant things for black, such as pawn c3 followed by d4, the Italian game. From here it's gonna attack the pawn as well as the bishop, the pawn can go forward and attack the knight, and it's still quite complicated and dangerous for black, and there is a bunch of theory that black needs to know. That's why quite a few, probably most of the players actually prefer to go knight of f6, and even though that allows this move knight to g5, which attacks this pawn on f7. Now, black's gonna deal with this threat somehow, and of course the most obvious move and the move that most players are gonna play is the move pawn to d5. Now, there are some tricks such as knight to take c4, bishop takes to c5, Traxler counter gambit, but those are kind of fairly tricky, more advanced variations where black needs to know a bunch of theory. So d5 is certainly much more intuitive, and that's what you're going to expect, especially on lower rating levels. Now white's going to capture, and here, who would have thought that the most natural move, the move that seems like the only reasonable move to play, turns out to be a deadly losing error. That's the move knight takes d5. Now, spoiler, pros here go knight to a5, which leads to an about equal position. White goes bishop b5 check, and after that, it's a balanced position, nothing super special, just a normal game of chess. Now, let's take it back. However, of course, in most cases, black plays this most natural move, knight takes d5, because that simply recaptures a pawn white took on d5, and black recaptures, seems most natural, seems really good for black. Now, however, this fails to this fried liver attack, knight takes f7, and as we already know, you're gonna fry your opponent into just several moves. Now from here, not only you grab the pawn, but you're also attacking the queen and the rook, therefore it is forced for black to capture it, and you bring the queen out with the queen to f3, which is check to the king, plus you add one more attack to this knight on d5, which is currently attacked twice. Now, what can black do in this position? If they chicken out and just move their king away from danger to any square, you're gonna simply pick up the knight, and after that black is completely destroyed, you got the knight back, you continue your attack, and there's nothing good for black. We saw that, for instance, if they go king e8, that's exactly the case, bishop takes d5, you threaten queen f7, you threaten bishop takes c6, black is just destroyed. If they go back to g8, that's even worse, because now bishop takes d5 counts basically with a checkmate. Black can delay it for a move or two, but that is still a checkmate. So the king has no way out. That's why that is equally bad. Now, the most resilient move by black is to be bold and to play king to e6. Now black obviously takes huge risks by keeping their king in the middle of the board in such an exposed position, but at least black guards this knight on d5, so at least they're up a knight. And they're hoping that they can somehow survive the attack and end up with an extra piece. It's not the case because you can still defeat black, but now you need to show some skill. But you won't have to show some skill because you'll watch this video simply and follow it. Anyway, so king e6 is the most resilient. What do you do then? Well, since this knight is still pinned down to the king and attacked, you just play knight to c3, bringing one more attacker against this knight, and now bishop takes d5 check or any other capture on d5 is a major threat, which is certainly a big deal for black. Now, black can try to defend this knight one way or the other, which we're going to talk about in a moment, but there is also another move which is actually a common error. It's a move knight to d4, and thousands of games have been played this way. You're probably going to face this move once in a while, so let's talk about this for a second, because you got to know how to handle this. This counterattacks your queen as well as this pawn on c2, and from there, it's going to target your king and your rook. Therefore, if you start to panic, you can actually go wrong and lose your advantage. So the correct move is bishop takes d5. This is check to the king. Therefore, black has no time to take any of your pieces. They have to move the king. Now, given the fact that you're going to penetrate with queen to f7 on the next move, the safest square and the only square for the king to go to should be to d6, but you play queen to f7 anyway, kind of trying to force your attack. You don't care as much about this pawn because you're going to checkmate your opponent's king, which is simply more important. Still, most of your opponents will notice that knight takes c2 is a juicy fork to the king and the rook, and they'll happily grab it. Now you go king to d1, they gobble up the rook, but after that, knight to e4 is just a checkmate. So pretty cool. So it's check, and then our queen guards here, takes away these squares, the knight takes away this one. Therefore, this is indeed a checkmate, and that's another very common way for you to win. Alright, now we're approaching the main line, the most stubborn defense of black. But before that, let me take a second to send you my best holiday greetings. Merry Christmas, I hope you're having a good time with your loved ones, and thank you for being part of this community. You guys are awesome, your comments often make my day. So all the best to you this holiday season and the coming year. Thank you, you rock. While normal people cherish their cookies and send good wishes to others, we're gonna enjoy our fried liver and prepare dreadful consequences to your chess opponents. Anyway, let's continue. So the knight on d5 has been under the massive attack, and the best way black can do is to defend it. They can do it either by going knight to e7 and guard the knight this way, or by going knight to b4. Now, spoiler, knight b4 is better. Why? Because if they go knight e7, yes, they do defend this knight. However, this knight on e7 blocks the bishop, blocks the queen, and is just standing there passively. While if we compare this with knight to b4, it also defends this knight on d5. However, the rest of his pieces are still active, plus this knight from b4 also threatens this pawn on c2. Therefore, knight b4 is clearly superior, and that's why we're going to analyze that. Again, knight e7 leads to similar positions, just in a worsened scenario for black. What are we going to do here? Should we worry about this pawn on c2? No, we shouldn't. And yet you still can castle just to avoid potential check after knight takes c2, and because you were going to castle anyway, just because you need to finalize your development. Now, black anyway can't move this knight away because it has to guard the knight. If they try to grab the pawn, that's really bad. Bishop takes d5 counts with a check, and you'll probably checkmate him very soon. They just lose the knight and lose the king, lose everything. So let's go back. Therefore, knight takes c2 is not an option. They have to guard this knight by going pawn to c6. If they don't do this, you are actually threatening to go pawn a3 yourself, kick away this knight, and then, gobble up the other one on d5 and win. Therefore, pawn to c6 is forced. So this position in the olden days considered to be somewhat complex, unclear, because yeah, the king is very exposed here. However, black is still holding on to their extra knight, and so it was played even on GM level in the past. But nowadays, thanks to supercomputers that we have, there is no mystery anymore, and we know that white wins. How do you do this? Well, obviously you want to target this exposed king. It's the main weakness of the black's position. So you do this by going d4. You want to open up the e-file and take aim at the king. And as you do so, basically they're defenseless because they're still mostly undeveloped. Their knight on d5 is pinned, and the king is centralized, so pretty much everything is wrong about their position. Let's say they're going to take this pawn on c2. So they're trying to bite the bullet and play aggressively, say, hey, I'm counterattacking here and here, you know, you gotta do something about that. We're still not gonna care at all. So we're going after the king, we know that's more important, so we just try to open up as many files as we can in the middle of the board. They capture on a1, and now we bring one more attack against this knight on d5, and finally we overpower black. There is no way for them to defend this knight anymore. We attack it with that many pieces, and black is finally defenseless. And as we grab the knight, we're gonna break through and get to the king and checkmate it. So that's basically our game plan. Super simple, but also super effective. After black plays whatever they want, let's say they try to bring the knight back or any other move, doesn't really matter. You grab on d5, and after this exchange, bishop takes d5, counts with a check, and now because the bishop is supported, the king has to go, and after that, you know, if it goes to the d file with got a rook there, if it goes to the e7, which is the most common move, you finish it off with queen to f7, checkmate, and you can just easily see that your attack is way superior. I mean, you could go bishop g5 if you wish, but queen f7 is just a checkmate in one. So that's how strong your attack is, and that's why you do defeat black even with their best play. That said, it works the best against beginners. If you're facing stronger opponents, they'll know certain counter and then it won't be that easy. But if you want to elevate your chess skills overall, you may wish to take advantage of the current opportunity or holiday offers. It is up to 80% off on my premium courses, and on top of that, it is buy one get one free. This offer is going to last for several more days, and if you're interested, you can read the details in the description below, and I'll be very happy to help you achieve your chess goals. Have a great time. Take care.